This year's Palme d'Or winner at Cannes, Anatomy of a Fall, sees Justine Triet direct off a script she co-wrote with Arthur Harrar, particularly with German lead actress Sandra Hüller in mind, having collaborated with her previously in 2019 Sybil. It's a French and English language courtroom drama with a really simple setup. Early into the movie, after having an interview of hers interrupted by her husband playing music, ironically 50 Cent's PIMP instrumental version, obnoxiously loud upstairs. Hüller's Sandra is named lead suspect after their blind son discovers their father's body laying outside their home in suspicious circumstances. The near 3 hours that ensues is largely set in the courtroom for a trial that exhausts every avenue in a kind of elevated whodunit style movie. During the trial, we see Sandra being prepped to see herself as others will, because in the trial, the truth doesn't matter. But we also see her complexities and motives in the film never really tips its hand, so you spend the entire 3 hours off balance as to whether we can actually believe this person and take them at face value or not. Antoine Reinhardt is the film's hidden gem for me as the lead prosecutor, who gives an extraordinary shift, teasing out the audience's doubts and main themes. It's an incredibly straightforward movie on paper that lives for long stretches in conversation with itself. The middle hour, for example, is set almost entirely in the courtroom, and Reinhardt's performance keeps it cinematic instead of procedural while pushing and pulling our moral compass entirely. The French court system as well, if this is how it actually formats in the way that the movie plays it out, trials of this nature, is also primed for drama, because what we're used to seeing is kind of just a witness is called and then they're questioned and then they're cross-examined, then another witness is called, and then you might see the person who's accused get called at one stage, and that's usually the dramatic interval. That's kind of what we're used to seeing, but here it's more like a consistent dialogue, and again, there's no kind of opening and closing cases. They're more kind of consistently making their cases with the witnesses called up, but also at all stages, Sandra can be called upon, and she's constantly on the stand to kind of answer any follow-up questions that may come from what the witness's testimony is given. It's really exciting, and again, you just don't know which way it's going to go at any stage. This movie is an absolute triumph for Triet, who succeeds in making subtle but clever choices, but for the most part, just getting out of the way and letting a great cast work off of a phenomenally deft script. One scene, which is a great example, starts with an extended flashback, which is essentially a heated conversation with two characters that then escalates towards a marriage story level of intensity. But when it reaches its peak, Triet opts to do that kind of Quentin Tarantino Reservoir Dogs thing of letting your imagination fill in the blanks. And instead of like keeping with the scene, cuts back to the courtroom where we just hear an audio recording and see it through the eyes of everyone there listening. So ultimately as well, what is happening in our imagination is probably much worse than what's happening if we just stayed with the scene. It doesn't tip its hat to what actually happened and whether that incriminates anyone. There's also an absolutely show-stopping scene at the end from a character I won't name because I'll keep it kind of for the movie to tell the story, but a character who's constantly present throughout, but you never sense that they have that kind of scene in them or are going to be called to provide that level of acting, but they absolutely step up to the mark, and it ends up proving crucial in how the trial goes. And it left me, and I imagine several others who were in the screening I was in, needing to take a minute after the film had ended because I was absolutely gobsmacked by what I just saw. At the end of 2023, as I'm starting to kind of collect my thoughts and maybe figure out what my favorite movies of the year, Anatomy of a Fall just made that exercise very difficult for me. It is excellent. Maybe I'm not trying to overreach here. Maybe there is a bit of recency bias here, but I genuinely mean this when I say it. This may be the best courtroom drama I've ever seen. And if that's your type of movie, it is absolutely essential. I cannot recommend this enough. Anatomy of a Fall, it's in cinemas now.